very warm welcome to today's webinar with our partners, Verizon Media. I'm going to learn all about 5G. I have to say, I don't know much, not sure about you, but I know we're going to be completely educated, which is really wonderful. I hope you had a wonderful long weekend in the glorious sunshine. I can see it's shining again today, which is lovely. I think everyone feels a little bit better when there's sun out. So our focus, as you all know, as many of you know, because you've been coming to our webinars on a regular basis in this new normal, is threefold. It's most importantly thinking about our well-being, ourselves and our teams, keeping us inspired, motivated, and of course, as a global community connected, which is something that's really dear to our hearts at the Marketing Society. So today's topic, 5G, is being hailed as the potential driver of the next industrial revolution. Yet the technology still remains largely misunderstood. Until today, some might say. We will hear how 5G can power brands' engagement with their customers. And as always, with all of our events, we're really keen for interactivity. So the way it's going to work is we'll have our speaker in just a minute from Verizon, Mark, who I'll introduce, and then I will pop back on to host a conversation with him and all of you. So there'll be lots of time to ask questions at that point. So get your questions ready, and if you could use the Q&A function for your questions, and the chat function, which we'll test in just a moment, for any other chat or comments or feedback. If, as always, you can keep your questions quite pithy so we can get through as many as possible, and also it helps me, the host, answer them without stuttering through, which is very nice of you all. So we just want to see how you're all doing. It's been a few days since our last webinar, so see where you're all dialing in from. So use the chat function now. Tell us where you're dialing in from, or zooming in from, more appropriately, and how you're feeling today. Singapore, brilliant. Hello, Camille, lovely to see you. Scotland, wonderful. So already we've got a global audience here. We're loving this. Concerned? Well, hopefully we can help you with that as we go on. Twickenham, me too. I'm in Twickenham as well, Rachel. And how are you feeling? Sunny day, feeling all good, feeling connected. Hello, Andrew Strange. That's my friend there. Lovely. Sarah, you've just popped onto the screen. You might need to just, yeah, that's one of our team. Wonders of technology. So we've got lots and lots of people feeling good, which is really wonderful. And use the chat function to say what things you'd like to hear about as well. So if you haven't got a specific question, what would you like to learn about today? Because we want to make sure that we really deliver on that. So over in a second to our speaker. We're really excited to have Mark Melling join us today. He is a real expert on this stuff, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know him on a couple of, oh, you're already here before, there we go, Mark, how you doing? On a couple of calls, and he's already been wowing me. So Mark is from Verizon Media. He's head of RYOT Studio and 5G for EMEA, and leads their team, which is a division of the Oscar-nominated and Emmy-winning business. He's also truly international, as you can see from his backdrop, perhaps, don't know. But he's born in Canada to British parents, went to university in the Netherlands, and started his career in, in South Korea. But now you live in the UK, love it. You're going to explain to us the potential of tech, the potential of 5G, and how you drive it will, but how you believe it will drive a new era of human connection. So over to you, Mark, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in a bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Gemma. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today, especially those of you who got up early in North America and I guess late in Asia. Fantastic to have a great international audience here. I think we're gonna start off the chat with a bit of a poll. And specifically, I wanted to know from you guys, what are the emerging technologies that you've seen that people are talking about today that you're most excited about in terms of how they're going to affect your industry, your role, your job. So I've kind of narrowed them down to the ones that I think are going to be powered most and vaulted forward most by 5G technology. So there's AR, VR, AI, gaming technology, and edge compute, or maybe you're not excited about any of them. You put none of the above. So over to you guys to enter that poll and tell us what you're thinking. I'm going to first go into the technology itself, and actually how it's a foundational technology, 5G that is, that will superpower other technologies such as the texts and mediums you see on the screen. Myself, I head RYOT Studio, which is a division of Verizon. Our role is essentially to bring together storytellers and brands and emerging bleeding edge technologies to get their messages and stories out in new ways. So we are very excited about 5G, and I'm about to tell you why. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Is that happening? There we go. I'm now sharing. Great. So let's start with 5G and why we are so why we see it as such an important aspect of evolving the next digital evolution as we see it. So first, what we usually hear about when we talk about 5G is, of course, speed, faster phones, faster data, and yes, that's absolutely true. But that's really only half of the story. We have to think about throughput, the amount of data which we can transmit between our devices at any given time is incredibly important. So if you think about it this way, if you're building a high-speed train from London to Manchester, it's not just the speed of the train that you care about. You also care about the number of people and the amount of things and cargo you can carry on that train. It's the same with speed between the connection of mobile devices. There, in 2020 is projected to be over 25 billion connected devices in the world. Now, we have to realize that the power that connects those technologies, if that's to change exponentially, that's also going to have a huge impact on our world. The reason why this is so important is that when you have large amounts of data that can be transmitted at the blink of an eye, we can leverage other devices in real time and not just the devices in our pockets. And that's why cloud computing, or better yet, edge, which sits at the edge of the cloud, often goes along in the conversation with 5G. The ability to send incredible amounts of data to the cloud at incredible speeds, where superior devices live, render that data, and then send that intelligent data back to us in our person almost instantly, will allow for real-time experiences, the likes of which we've never seen before. And that brings us to latency. Now, latency, or also known as lag, is that delay, right? That split-second delay that you have when you're on your mobile device, going from one page to another. Now, the significance of that here is that with 5G, that decreases to estimates of as low as 1 to 10 milliseconds, of course, due to the increases in speed and throughput that I mentioned before. The relevance, like to put it into context, is that human reaction time is about 250 milliseconds to a visual stimulus, 170 milliseconds for audio stimulus, and 150 milliseconds to touch. So why do phones need to be that responsive, faster than the blink of an eye? Well, the truth is that they don't. But in many cases, 1 second or half a second of latency can be a matter of life and death. And that's why we start talking about things like automated cars being possible with 5G. We can't have latency in a world of connected cars. And another area where it becomes even more important as a matter of life and death is in gaming. Currently, game consoles are necessary so that gamers can have shared experiences and high rendered without latency. Gamers simply won't put up with half a second of latency. 5G is going to change the course of all of that. Now, next, certainly an aspect of improvement that's very important to all of us, and that's the actual computing efficiency of the devices themselves under 5G. So because we're using economies of scale and we're using external computing when using our devices, 5G is actually 90% more energy efficient than current 4G models. That means that the longer we can stay on our battery, the longer we can have that connectivity. Another frustration that many people have right now with 4G is its lack of ability to connect while mobile on transport. Areas like trains and aviation are very difficult to combine with 4G technology because of the speed in which that transport travels. So that's not just on our devices, but even the connectivity to that transport itself. With 5G, that changes exponentially, with mobility plus connectivity increasing to up to 500 kilometers per hour. And lastly, but certainly not least, is the ability for 5G networks to handle much more mobile density. Now, mobile density is defined as the number of devices that you can have active in a network per square kilometer. Now, many of you have probably had the frustration of under 4G network going into a place like a theater or a stadium and not being able to connect with your device. Now, those have implications in our industries, particularly in live events. Ramifications are massive. Audiences today not only want to experience, but they also want to share those experiences. We've all heard the adage when we're on Twitter, pick or it didn't happen. We are seeing decreases in certain live events because of the younger generations moving into the live events and not being able to share in the spaces where they are having those experiences. So the idea here is not that 5G is a technology in itself that is going to change the world, but that it is a foundational technology that is going to supercharge other technologies, much in the way that 4G did. You know, if you look at a company like Uber, that was a huge beneficiary of 4G mobile technologies. The technologies that they leverage already existed before 4G. Things like mobile payment systems, things like GPS, and things like peer-to-peer communication. Those are the three main technologies that Uber leverages, but very much existed in a 3G world. However, many of you have probably been on your 4G device trying to get an Uber when it drops down to 3G. It doesn't work. 4G superpowers those technologies to be able to work together in real time. And that's something that transformed the travel industry forever. So if we look at what are the technologies that are going to be supercharged by 5G, I believe the top 5 are right here in front of you. First of all, augmented reality. 5G has the ability to eliminate many of the friction points, such as app downloads and really the clunkiness of augmented reality to be reactive to the real world environment. With virtual reality, 5G has the ability to bring down the size and awkwardness of the headset, which honestly I believe is a massive barrier to the adoption of the technology today. 5G also has the ability to bring artificial intelligence closer to real time. Today, we use many devices like Alexa that are mostly built on machine learning because of localized technology. But with 5G, you'd have the ability to communicate with much superior computing at the edge in order to have not only conversations with bots, but actually have bots giving clients solutions to problems that they're having. Next, we have game engines. Gaming right now is having an incredible surgence, especially in terms of combining with other entertainment formats. But we have to look back at what is the technology that games are built on that allows real-time interactivity that we can leverage in the future. And lastly, and I've mentioned it several times, edge compute, the ability to bring all of these technologies together in real time for people wherever they are because of this hyperconnectivity to make things work more effective and more efficiently in the new world. That's our view of where we're going with 5G technology and the aspects of our world that are going to be very much impacted by other technologies that 5G is going to supercharge. Thanks, Gemma.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was fascinating, Mark. Thank you so much. Now, I know questions are already coming in. If you can please use the Q&A function, we will get to them very shortly, but I have, as ever, a couple of questions of my own. You talk about the new speed and transfer capabilities that 5G will bring, like we've never seen before. How do you think this will impact real-time experiences for consumers?
Well, real time is the key. I mentioned it several times in the presentation. The ability to bring things into live, into real time. There's something about that it's the real world. It's the physical world. You know, right now we're living in a world where when you look at digital experiences, and I'll bring in two very important technologies, AR and VR. They're not real time, as it were. There's so many friction points between the experience and the user right now. So, for example, with AR, having to get download an app, having to use the app, and have a clunky experience where the app has to learn your room. There's a lot of delay. There's a lot of friction in there, and people just don't have that patience to bring that into their daily lives. And you look at VR. I mentioned having the clunky headset. That delay of putting on that massive and let's be honest, with kind of silly looking thing, takes away from the experience, and that then slows down adoption. Like, imagine if, like, every time you watch a TikTok video, you had to put something on, or you had to wait 5 seconds. Would TikTok have the adoption that it has right now? Or would people be watching 30 videos in a row right now? No, absolutely not. But that friction existed before 4G, that you wouldn't be able to stream live. You had to go on a site and download. Those experiences weren't really integrated with your physical world, with your everyday life. And 4G unleashed technologies to bring it into real time, to bring streaming into real time. 5G is going to do the same thing with AR, going to do the same thing with VR. And that's going to allow customers to experience things integrated with their everyday life and their real world, not something that's full of friction and very much separate from their everyday life.
Thank you very much. I can see questions coming in, so I will get to them in a second, I promise. I'm curious, live events with big gatherings of people feel unlikely for the foreseeable future, I think it's fair to say. How can 5G recreate these events as virtual experiences to the masses, do you think?
Okay, so to be honest, way before COVID, we were looking at ways in which 5G would enhance live events. I mentioned before that a big challenge for live events companies, sports teams, is that as soon as these fans go into these live event spaces, it's like walking into a digital black hole. And generations, the millennial generation, certainly Gen Z, that's a friction for them. If they can't go to if they go to a live event and they can't share that experience in real time, there's a way they feel that they're not even really there. And if you look at college football, right? And the reason I'm saying college football in the US is it's a good indicator because of the age of the average attendee in college football. Attendance in college football have been falling for 7 of the last 8 years. Now, I put a lot of that down to the fact that young people don't like going to these stadiums because it's a choice between the physical and the digital. And sometimes they choose the physical, but sometimes we know that they choose the digital. 5G can bring those experiences together and enhance the experience of those in the stadium or at the live event. So that's one. The second thing that can then happen is using 5G technology within the stadium to enhance the experience of those at home. So we've seen Canon very recently experimenting at the Rugby World Cup with volumetric capture technology. Now, volumetric capture technology is the ability to capture a game, for example, a rugby match in 360, in 3D. And that would also give the user the ability to have almost like a God view of that game, where they control what angle they see from. Now, this was done during the Rugby World Cup, where they had 1 minute of latency between capture and render. Canon just came out a few weeks ago and said, you know what, we brought that down to 3 seconds. Now, this was before COVID. Now, when we look at the implications of COVID, where we can have, yes, the experience is going to be different. Yes, when we go back into the stadium, that will be different. So how can we build engagement, not just in the stadium, but build up value at home? Is there revenue potential for offering fans this 360 view? And this is just an example. Is there brand sponsorship opportunities of offering that view to users? Sorry, long-winded answer, but yes, in the future, it's not that live events are going to disappear, but I think for this foreseeable future, I hope not, but for the foreseeable future, they could be less intimate, less accessible. So we have to think about ways of improving the experience using digital to grow the virtual audience, to keep the momentum going in the live event space.
Lovely. Now there's a question come in from Ronan. I was actually going to ask you later, but given it's Ronan done, I will ask it from him. He says, good morning from New Jersey. I know you know each other. And hi, Ronan. How do brands help customers to see the opportunities 5G brings? And what are you guys at RYOT working on?
So it's a great question, Ronan. Hi.
It's one of mine. It was one of mine later.
Yeah. Look, I think the key thing right now is kind of what we call the road to 5G. And I mentioned before, there are existing technologies today that are going to be supercharged by 5G. So for a brand, it's imperative that they start to not only understand, but experiment with those technologies today with trusted partners, to start developing a forward-looking strategy so that they're not playing catch-up in the future. And it's not just to the advantage of the future, but there's really three reasons why you do it today. One is, of course, to start shaping your business's understanding and the people within your businesses, their understanding of those technologies, so you're not playing catch up. Of course, that's number one. But two, learning from those technologies from a marketing perspective can start to bring insight actually into your products and services about how that technology can potentially add to the value of your product, and you can gain a competitive edge that way. But lastly, and I think this is the most important, you get to see how your target audience interacts with that technology, and that's crucial. You don't want to learn externally how your target audience is using AR by observing other brands interacting with them. There's so much you can learn by experimenting with this technology, engaging and thrilling and delighting your audiences, your target demographic with now, learn and help that fuel and develop your future.
Love that. Thank you. There are so many questions coming in, so I'm going to move to them and we'll go back to my questions towards the end. Gosh, people are really curious about 5G and it's fascinating. How do you think it will benefit retail? What do you think is the biggest opportunity? So you've talked about live events, but what about retail?
So in terms of retail, it's if you look at retail today, right? no matter how far along we've come on e-commerce, and we've seen that definitely happen with COVID. It's good to kind of see where we are in terms of e-commerce today. And with COVID, this is also applicable because if you look at digital, it's a very separate strategy from the physical strategy that any brand has today. You have your here's our bricks and mortar strategy, and here's our digital strategy, and sometimes they cross, but the truth is that, you know, we just don't have the connectivity to bring those two things together. But COVID is a chance. You know, I live here and I live in London. This emergence that, you know, when we inevitably get through this, is going to be an opportunity for the high street to reinvent itself. There are obvious advantages to digital retail, but there are human advantages to physical retail. Human beings love to shop. No one wants to see the high street die. But what are the aspects of the digital world that add value to the physical world and vice versa? And what I keep saying about 5G is the ability to bring physical and digital in together in real time. They're so far apart right now. We don't see it sometimes because we see ourselves as very advanced in digital. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. So I would say the advantage is to start creating dual experiences between your physical environment and digital. You know, we're experimenting right now in RYOT with everything with a digital twin. When we build something, whether it's a studio or a product, we're creating the digital 3D twin of that space or that object, so that we can integrate those worlds seamlessly for our clients and for our audiences to experience those things seamlessly as well.
Yeah, love that. I think it's great lessons for us all. Actually, it's what we need to be thinking about now, both physical and digital, all the time. What role will 5G play in the Internet of Things? It's an interesting question. Glad you're answering that and not me.
Yeah, well, I think the stadium example is a really interesting one.
Good one, yeah.
You know, and Verizon's lit up, I think it's 15 or more now NFL stadiums in the US now. The exciting thing about that is that, like, every stadium's almost like a small city, right? With its population, with its traffic problems, with its commerce, with its entertainment, with its you know, currency transmission, and you know, in some football stadiums there's a religion. You know, it's quite interesting. I think the opportunity with Internet Things is just at a high level. The ability for 5G to bring so many of these technologies together in real time and have things be reactive. You know, how does the cameras in your stadium inform the traffic in your stadium, right? Today, with current technology in most spaces, we have cameras to show where people are leaving a stadium, but can we do anything with that information in real time, and maybe, you know, use technology to open up certain doors in the stadium or close certain doors in the stadium to get people to move in the right direction? I think in the NFL right now, from the time a game ends, it takes something like an hour and 45 minutes to leave the parking lot. That's friction, right? And that's friction for an event experience. We have the technology to know what people are doing. I think 5G and the Internet of Things gives an opportunity to make sense of what they're doing and provide solutions in real time that are more efficient and effective.
Thank you. Goodness me, I'm learning a lot. I'm sure our audience is as well. There's lots of questions about how 5G will affect different areas of our society. So there's one coming in, which I think Jay's in New York. Lots of immediate need to help schools teach remotely into this fall. So definitely in New York, as we say, autumn. What current efforts, you know, with 5G can help with this? So in terms of remote teaching in schools.
Yeah. This is the part of 5G that I'm most excited about, and it goes back to that the 3D modeling aspect that I mentioned before.
Mm.
So, you know, if you look at where we are with digital, right? So when I was growing up, you may not believe it, but you know, we didn't have the internet yet, and so we learned from encyclopedias, right? 2D text-based images, 2D imaging, and the next generation came along, and they had this thing called the internet, and they could learn way more because they had Wikipedia. But it's still a very similar experience, isn't it? Wikipedia to encyclopedia. It's text-based. It's 2D. You know, it's just another type of reading. Sure, there's more data, and that's fantastic. But the next evolution of education will bring in 3D modeling, and with 5G, the ability to create 3D objects, as I mentioned before, grows exponentially, just in terms of how quickly you can do it and with what ease. You're starting to see 3D rendering becoming more commonplace across our industry, anyways, with new tools that Apple and Samsung offer in their devices. But imagine the ability to not just read about an atom and talk about an atom, but see inside of an atom. I mean, that allows people to be educated in new and innovative ways. And you know, there's that statistic about, you know, you only remember a certain percentage of what you see or what you hear, but what you experience will stay with you for a long time. So the ability for people to be educated in a way that they experience things will be exponential. And given that we are going to lose some of that, potentially lose some of that physical interaction of being inside a classroom, we need to, just like the live events, think of new ways to keep people engaged and keep them still feeling involved in a digital learning setting.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what do you think then that will be the biggest beneficial impact of 5G as we are navigating this new normal?
I think it's going to be, you know, it's bringing together that physical and digital shared experiences. You know, the 5G evolution is going to remove physical and invisible barriers from our industries, from remote working, which you know, it's been great, but there are still challenges. It's still 2D. It's not as interactive as it could be. They're not truly shared interactive experiences. But you know, if you combine 5G with gaming technology, that allows meetings to be done, you know, in a more interactive way. I saw the other day, someone sent me an article about, there's a game called Red Redemption. It's a cowboy game, and what some companies are doing, I mean, of course, gaming companies and you know, VR companies, they're starting to have virtual meetings around the fire as cowboys inside Red Redemption. The one downside is that the sit down at the fire button is like also very near the choke the person next to you button, but you know, it's just a different way, a more interactive way, a more fun way of having a meeting. But fundamentally, they're still having a meeting. They're still talking about their business and perhaps in a more effective way. And then secondly, I think that you know, 5G, you know, offers brands these opportunities to bring really exciting, innovative ways to engage with their customers. You know, you not only have the ability to reach customers using new technologies, but thrill them, you know, engage them. Imagine you were the first brand to bring that live football 360 experience to the Super Bowl or the FA Cup. That man, woman, boy, girl, they'll never forget that experience that Coca-Cola brought them or Nike brought them. And that's a huge opportunity. Anytime there's an emerging technology, it's an opportunity for a brand to bring it to market and thrill their audiences.
I love that. We are running out of time, but I've still got a couple more questions for you. Looking to the future, but I have to say, just on the gaming thing, you told me you weren't a gamer before. You knew that really well.
I'm not a gamer. I'm not a gamer, but I'm obsessed with gaming technology because I believe that it is it's showing us so many indications of where the world was, and this was before COVID, of where the world was going. You know, Fortnite has moved from a game to a micro social network. This is where kids are going to hang out with their friends. You know, they're going to a party royale now to play games and to chat. And the best thing for them is that their parents aren't there. You know, this is not Facebook. It's not even TikTok anymore. They're micro gaming places to engage, and you know, the first brands that go in there, and we've seen it already with the biggest innovators like Star Wars and Travis Scott doing his concert there the other day. Those are going to be the leaders of tomorrow because of what they're learning during this period.
Since we are talking about gaming, we've seen a lot of gaming and esports on our website in recent months, and our editor Michael has just said, you know, but one of the things that he's noticed is that brands seem to be very reluctant to take the plunge into gaming and esports. And you were just saying, if you're the first movers, that's a good thing, right? So why do you think that is?
Well, I think that so there's two parts of it. One is that they believe that gaming is a niche audience, and in a certain regard, that's true. But I would also argue one of the most difficult niche audiences to reach. I mean, I hear my advertisers complaining to me all the time that they can't reach young people because they're not on TV and they're all on streaming without ads. So how do I reach them? Gaming. So that's one. Yes, it is niche, but take advantage of that. But the other bit is not seeing, you know, beyond traditional gaming and how that's actually moving into the mainstream. And we've seen that now with the NFL basically, and all sports on pause. They had a Madden NFL tournaments of the players all playing games with each other. Now, the thing that was interesting about that was not that they were doing that, because people were watching that, and that's probably your niche audiences. That's not the one you reach. The highlights of those esports games were shown on ESPN. It's gone main. Yeah. And there's certain things that are going to come out of this that we're trending to anyways that have been accelerated, and that's one of them. Is that you know, Animal Crossing. Okay, Fortnite. All right, I don't want to run around and shoot people. Okay, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is a new Fortnite. You know, it's growing, and the audiences that we want to engage in new ways. They're spreading out, and they're spreading out on different mediums and different platforms. But we have to recognize gaming as more micro social networks where people go and hang out, and not just Super Mario Brothers or Sonic, which we all grew up there. They're just not the same thing, and they have so much potential to grow beyond this niche.
I love that. Thank you. We are really running out of time now, and there's still questions coming in. So I think there's probably appetite for another one of these for sure. But look into the future. What do you think the marketing department will look like in 5 years' time?
Well, you know, I hope it looks very much the same. You know, I think, you know, look, what I love about this 5G technology is that it supercharges, you know, other technologies, as I said, but also supercharges creativity and ideation. You know, and the beauty of the existing marketing department, which I work very closely with my marketing department right now, is there's great storytellers, you know, and us as technologists, yeah, we're great storytellers too, I guess. But when you bring those two things together, storytelling and technology, you can make really amazing things happen. So I would think the marketing department looks very much the same. But when we all get somewhat back to the office, I would encourage them to scoot a little closer to the technologists in the office as well, and start thinking about some ways to get some projects going that again can engage their audiences in ways that we've not dreamed of yet.
But still apply the 2 meter distancing when you get a little bit closer.
Absolutely. join our redemption meetings.
Brilliant. So what do you think are the key future trends that you see in the creative technology space that brands should be aware of to future-proof themselves for the arrival of 5G? I realise that's a really big question.
Okay, well, let's just kind of talked about a little bit with what Ronan asked. I think What I will say is, okay, let's focus on live events, because the live virtual event space right now, it's probably overwhelming for a lot of people when they go on LinkedIn or they see everything that's happening in social. And I would say try and do what you can right now to understand what's going on in the live event space. But let's bring it down into the three areas that I fundamentally believe live events are going into. It's not so broad. Actually, I think only three things are really happening. One is that reality is going into virtual events, right? And that's an example of Travis Scott, right? Travis Scott and his very human, very real voice, singing and performing in a virtual space. Now, he was an avatar. He wasn't photo real, so it very much had the feel and the appearance of a virtual world and a human thing and a real thing happening in there. Now, but then there's the other way when you look at like the Shanghai Fashion Week, right? So Shanghai Fashion Week, okay, they canceled the audiences, but they still had the models go down the runway, but they integrated virtual into a real event. So it was kind of the opposite, right? So you had a real space and that happening and using virtual to enhance that real event. Cool. So those two very different experiences, but I think with the future of the experience, what we're excited about with 5G is then bringing those two things together seamlessly. And I don't mean where you can't tell if you're in a virtual world or not. I mean that when you're bringing the real things into the virtual world or vice versa, that it's so seamless that going to the event virtually is just as appealing, not the same, but just as appealing to going to the event physically. I think those are the three different areas in which we need to focus on in terms of virtual live events.
Love that. So I'm just going to finish with, because we are literally running over time now. I think I might know your answer to this, but what do you think is the next big thing?
It's game engines, gaming technology. Remember what the architecture in which a game is built on allows you to, one, build virtual worlds very, very easily and allow people to interact within that world. So, if we're talking about, virtual education, like we talked about before, what the advantage of that could be is that instead of a teacher standing up in front of a classroom in real time, which is amazing, and we hope to get back to that soon. Imagine a teacher standing up in front of their class in an art class in the Sistine Chapel, right? That's possible today with that gaming technology. Now, 5G is going to power that interaction and allow that, that photo-real experience to increase. That's what it's really going to bring in real time. So you can look over and see your classmate, and this real, isn't this great? And that can be rendered in real time. But yeah, I really encourage everyone to start looking at gaming technology and how it's going to power the next level of interactivity in digital.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I want to say thank you, Mark. That was absolutely fascinating. And you can tell by the questions coming through the appetite for it. So I hope we can get you back in and do another one of these.
I would love to.
Maybe even show some of this great technology we're talking about. But brilliant. Thank you. I think there's so much we learned, and we will compile the key takeouts as we always do. But what I'm hearing is that 5G's got the opportunity to really superpower existing technologies. The big thing that I heard loud and clear is, as brands, as agencies, as marketers, we need to experiment today and not wait for tomorrow, and that really will be the thing that gives us a competitive advantage and be that first mover. And also it's about how working together physically and virtually, actually that can superpower in itself and make a much more powerful and compelling experience. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And if you've enjoyed today, which I think you have based on the interactivity, as always, we'd really appreciate if you would fill out the feedback that is coming up on your screen just about now, if our technology works. As we always say, the only way we can continue to deliver to our members what you want is if we hear from you. So really keen to get any feedback, and do feel free to email us as well, because obviously there's not enough space on the feedback if you want to share any more feedback or pick up the phone to any of the team. So if you As you know, we always have lots more things coming up. So just really quickly, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I will be hosting our second global conversation where we bring in participants from all 7 of our hubs and have a truly global conversation looking at the current situation that we're in, the opportunities, challenges that we're facing, but also what the future looks like and how we can future-proof ourselves. So look forward to that, 1 o'clock British Summer Time. And then next Wednesday, we've got a real treat. Keep Calm is back. This time we're Keep Calm and Innovating with the brilliant Orit Wolf. Don't know if you remember her from our conference a few years ago, but she was the amazing classical pianist who gave us all a treat with a brilliant performance, but then talked about how you can learn from leadership and building teams and innovation through music and through all the brilliant things she does. So join us for both of those. For now, just want to say thank you so much, Mark. Thank you to our partners, Verizon Media, and hope you all enjoyed it. And as always, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.